Israel just shocked the world with what they are building. Offshore platforms pumping 25 billion cubic meters of gas every year, a water canal moving more than 200 million cubic meters annually, and a high-speed rail network stretching 600 kilometers. Projects so vast, the Leviathan platform alone rivals 2 Empire State Buildings. But beneath the headlines, it is not just about construction. It is a race for energy independence, economic transformation, and regional influence. Billions are at stake, and every tunnel or pipeline could tip the balance between stability and new conflict. The real story begins with the sheer scale of this nationwide build-out, and it is unlike anything you have seen from Israel before. Out in the eastern Mediterranean, a team of 200 engineers and thousands of workers from 25 countries built something few thought possible. The Leviathan gas platform, anchored 10 kilometers off Israel's coast, sits above one of the world's largest offshore gas fields discovered this century. 4 wells reach down 1,500 meters to tap a reservoir holding over 600 billion cubic meters of recoverable gas, enough to power Israel for decades and still have plenty left for export. The Tamar field, discovered a year earlier, produces 8 billion cubic meters annually and covers most of Israel's electricity needs. Together, these 2 fields have turned Israel from a chronic energy importer into a major supplier. Getting the gas to shore is an engineering feat in itself. At Leviathan, twin 18-inch pipelines stretch 117 kilometers across the seafloor, delivering raw gas to a processing platform that rivals 2 Empire State Buildings stacked end-to-end. The platform's control room runs around the clock, managing flows that now reach up to 12 billion cubic meters a year, with expansion plans aiming for 21 to 24 billion. Tamar's 6 wells feed a separate 22-inch pipeline, linking directly to the national grid and export terminals. The first gas flowed from Leviathan on December 31, 2019, just 3 years after the final investment decision, a timeline that left industry insiders stunned. Today, nearly 90% of Leviathan's output is piped to Egypt and Jordan, fueling power plants and new industries across the region. Every cubic meter that leaves the platform doesn't just keep lights on. It funds national budgets, cements diplomatic deals, and powers the next phase of Israel's transformation. South of the gas fields, planners once mapped out a water lifeline that promised to reshape the region's future. The Red Sea, Dead Sea Conveyance, known as the 2 Seas Project, was designed to pump 200 million cubic meters of seawater each year through a 180-kilometer tunnel, crossing arid valleys and rocky plateaus. Along the route, the drop in elevation would spin turbines, generating up to 150 megawatts of hydroelectric power, enough to supply a mid-sized city. At the heart of the plan stood a dual ambition: rescue the shrinking Dead Sea and secure new fresh water for Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian territories. Engineers from 3 countries spent years running simulations and drilling test bores, chasing a vision that stretched from the Gulf of Aqaba to the lowest point on Earth. The budget ballooned from $3 billion to nearly $5 billion as cost overruns piled up, mainly from tunneling delays, legal battles over land, and the need to reroute around protected desert habitats. Lawsuits from Bedouin communities and kibbutzim forced an 11-kilometer realignment, adding nearly $500 million to the price tag. International donors hesitated, worried by environmental warnings that mixing Red Sea and Dead Sea waters could trigger unpredictable chemical reactions and threaten rare ecosystems. Despite these hurdles, the canal's supporters argued it could stabilize a lake that loses over a meter of water depth each year. But every new technical report brought fresh complications: salinity plumes, groundwater risks, and mounting political disagreements. Today, the project stands as a symbol of both regional ambition and the hard limits of engineering in a landscape shaped by nature, history, and fragile diplomacy. 600 kilometers of electrified track now cut across Israel, linking Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, and Be'er Sheva in a single high-speed grid. Trains are designed to reach 200 kilometers per hour, slashing travel times between the country's biggest cities by nearly half. The goal is clear. Shift 40% of intercity trips from highways to rail, easing congestion and cutting emissions. That's more than just a convenience. It's a complete overhaul of national mobility. The $6 billion price tag is being shouldered by a public-private partnership, with the ISR Fast Rail Partners Consortium at the helm. Shikun and Binui leads construction. Alstom supplies the trains and signaling. And equity partners from Israel, France, China, and global funds have all bought in. The state holds the land and oversees operations, but the private sector is on the hook for most of the construction and financing risk. Debt and equity are split 70-30, with Israeli banks and European lenders syndicating billions in loans. The partnership stretches for 25 years, 6 years to build, 19 to run and maintain. But speed comes with friction. Over 110 land parcels have been seized under eminent domain, sparking lawsuits from Bedouin families and kibbutzim in the south. Environmental groups won an injunction that forced a costly reroute near the Sharon region, adding $220 million to the budget and nearly a year of delays. The Ministry of Justice has offered higher compensation and relocation options, but legal battles continue. As of late 2025, earthworks are 70% complete. But the courtroom drama is far from over. Israel's new rail artery is transforming how people move and testing how a country balances ambition with the rights of its communities. Haifa's harbor now welcomes ships that would have once scraped bottom at the old quay. The main channel has been dredged to a depth of -17 meters, deep enough for the world's largest LNG carriers and new generation container ships. Port managers have installed an IoT logistics system that tracks every vessel, crane, and cargo unit in real time. That single upgrade cut average turnaround times by 30%, letting Haifa handle more traffic than ever without expanding its footprint. Security planners insisted on a special clause in the port's lease. Israeli authorities can override terminal control at any time, a direct response to early concerns about foreign management and intelligence risk. At Ben Gurion Airport, the newly expanded Terminal 2 is built to move an extra 5 million passengers a year. The design isn't just about people. Cargo bays and jetways now include LNG-capable handling, ready for a future where energy and trade flow together. Behind the scenes, airport planners have overhauled screening and customs, aiming to keep pace with the region's growing transit demand. Both Haifa and Ben Gurion serve as the country's main gateways, each one a critical link in turning raw resources and industrial output into global throughput. Just south of the coastal trade routes, Ashkelon's petrochemicals cluster is rewriting Israel's industrial DNA. $4 billion have gone into a network of plants that churn out 1 million tons of polyolefins every year, raw material for everything from medical tubing to car parts. What sets Ashkelon apart isn't just scale, but the feedstock, natural gas piped directly from the Leviathan and Tamar fields. This direct line has slashed production costs, letting Israeli-made polymers compete head-to-head with European and Gulf suppliers. Annual exports are forecast to hit $2 billion, with shipments bound for Asia, Africa, and the EU. The impact goes beyond balance sheets. 10,000 skilled jobs have been created, drawing engineers and process managers from Tel Aviv's tech and defense sectors into a world of round-the-clock refining and logistics. Supply chain analysts track every tanker, while plant supervisors oversee a site that runs 24 hours a day. For many, it's a leap from digital work to industrial frontiers, proof that Israel's economic future now runs on energy, chemistry, and global manufacturing, not just code and contracts. Every year, Israel's gas exports bring in close to $3 billion, most of it flowing from Leviathan and Tamar through pipelines to Egypt and Jordan. This steady revenue pays state salaries, funds new infrastructure, and underwrites economic deals that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. At the same time, these exports have become diplomatic currency. The Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, with delegates from Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and Cyprus meets regularly to hash out supply agreements and manage regional tensions. But the ledger isn't all profit. Marine biologists warn that offshore drilling threatens fragile seabed habitats. Studies have traced underwater noise and chemical leaks from the platforms, raising alarms about long-term damage to fish stocks and plankton. Meanwhile, the UN still mediates disputes over maritime boundaries, especially with Lebanon, where the 2022 agreement allowed Lebanon to develop the Qana prospect, but left both sides wary. Each new contract or pipeline brings promise, but also risk. As Israel's energy ambitions grow, so do the questions about what's gained and what could be lost. By 2019, Israel's Leviathan and Tamar gas fields were producing 25 billion cubic meters of gas piece each year, enough to meet domestic needs and export to Egypt and Jordan. The $3 to $5 billion Two Seas Canal, still only 45% complete, aims to move 200 million cubic meters of water annually, while the 600-kilometer high-speed rail is now 70% through earthworks. These projects have created over 30,000 jobs and brought in $3 billion in yearly gas exports. Yet, documents confirm persistent budget overruns, ecological concerns, and unresolved regional disputes, as seen in the UN-brokered maritime talks with Lebanon. While Israel's mega-builds have shifted the nation from scarcity to surplus, the long-term environmental impact and the ultimate success of regional partnerships remain open questions. The evidence so far is clear. Israel's transformation is real, but the risks and rewards of these projects will be measured for decades to come.